Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to plunge into a stack of sources, pull out those vital nuggets of knowledge, and hopefully help us all be a little more well-informed. Today, we're doing exactly that by exploring history. But not as, a dusty collection of dates. Think of it more like a living drama, a story that can actually illuminate our contemporary life in some pretty surprising ways. And our guide for this, well, we're cracking open one of the most monumental works of historical synthesis ever written, Will Durant's The Story of Civilization. Specifically, our deep dive today is into Caesar and Christ. That's volume 3 of Durant's incredible 11-volume series. It's truly vast. So our goal is really to extract the most important insights for you, the key takeaways.
Right. And a really unique aspect of Durant's approach, what he called synthetic history, is his commitment to weaving together all the major threads of a civilization. So he doesn't just focus on politics or wars. He brings in economics, morals, religion, science, philosophy, literature, art, everything. It's about getting that complete, that sort of holistic picture. And that's precisely what makes his work, well, a shortcut, really, to being genuinely well-informed without getting completely bogged down in endless details.
That's a great way to put it, a shortcut. So our challenge today is to follow Durant's lead, pinpoint those crucial insights, and maybe even some surprising facts about Roman civilization and, of course, the rise of Christianity. Let's dive in. First, maybe let's unpack the architect himself, Will Durant. Born in 1885, a philosopher by training who, along with his wife Ariel, really popularized history like few others. His writing style is known for being incredibly accessible, but also, deeply eloquent, makes complex stuff understandable, even kind of beautiful.
It's really compelling how he approached it. He genuinely believed you could learn more about human nature by watching us across 60 centuries than by just reading Plato or Aristotle. He sort of echoed Nietzsche's idea that all philosophy has now fallen forfeit to history. Basically, looking at the big sweep of time reveals more fundamental truths about us.
And what a sweep it is. I mean, it sounds like Durant was tackling a truly monumental task. From your perspective, what was the biggest challenge for him in synthesizing all that history, and what did he hope we could learn from it today?
Well, the sheer scope, absolutely. From our Oriental heritage, then the life of Greece, and then Caesar and Christ, it's just mind-boggling. I think his hope was to give us not just facts, but perspective. He saw so many striking parallels between the challenges Rome faced and those of his own time, and frankly, ours too. When you study this era, you'll find incredibly relevant insights into societal changes, political struggles, things that really echo today. It's quite startling sometimes.
Okay, let's start our journey then, maybe with Italy itself. Durant paints this picture of the peninsula, blessed by the Apennines, shielding the west coast, enriching the soil. Then you've got the Alps, standing guard up north, and on every other side, these protective waters, difficult shores. It was just strategically perfect, wasn't it? Right in the heart of the Mediterranean, positioned to rule the classic world.
Oh, absolutely. And what's remarkable are the layers of early people who shaped it. We find traces of old Stone Age culture, maybe 30,000 BC. Then around 10,000 to 6,000 BC, you get Neolithic culture. Think crude pottery, polished stone tools. Fast forward to about 2000 BC, and tribes from Central Europe bring this custom of building pile villages, often right in lakes, for safety. These eventually moved south, and even on land, they kept building on piles. That created what's called the terra mare culture, famous for this incredibly rich earth made from their, accumulated rubbish over time.
So from these early settlements, this new, powerful culture starts to emerge. Around 1000 BC, the descendants of those terra mare folks in the Po Valley learn how to use iron, probably from Germany. This gives rise to the Villanovan culture, which eventually morphs into the really influential Etruscan civilization.
The Etruscans were, incredibly advanced for their time. You have to imagine a society with sophisticated engineering, a powerful military, a thriving economy, all centuries before Rome really hit its peak. By the 6th century BC, their allied cities were the strongest political force in Italy. They had a well-organized army, famous cavalry, and this powerful navy ruling the Tyrrhene Sea, still called the Etruscan Sea, right? Their society was pretty feudal. An aristocracy owned the land, living in luxury off serfs and slaves captured in war. And their engineering, just amazing. They reclaimed Tuscany from forests and swamps with advanced irrigation and even urban sewage systems that were, frankly, beyond anything in contemporary Greece. They built drainage tunnels for lakes, cut roadways right through solid rock. Industrially, as early as 700 BC, they're mining copper and iron from Elba, smelting it at Populonia, selling pig iron all over Italy. Their merchants traded amber, tin, lead, iron from northern Europe down the Rhine and Rhone, selling their own goods in every major Mediterranean port. By 500 BC, Etruscan towns were even minting their own coins.
Wow. And those tomb paintings, they give such a vivid glimpse, don't they? Depicting them as short, stocky, these large, almost Anatolian heads, ruddy complexions, women using rouge, apparently noted for beauty, some men even shown with faces of real refinement, nobility, and finding dental bridge work in graves. That tells you something about their level of sophistication.
Exactly. Their art included that distinctive black pottery, Bucero Nero, and the tomb paintings showed just endless revelry, wild dancing, a deep love for music pipes, lyres, trumpets, seem essential to everything.
But here's the crucial insight Durant pulls out, isn't it? Despite all that power, their inability to really unite their city-states, much like the Greeks, became their downfall against a more unified Rome. In fact, an Etruscan adventurer actually captured the throne of Rome for a century around 618 BC. So the connection was deep, but ultimately Rome prevailed.
That's right. They were powerful, innovative, but ultimately fragmented.
So with the Etruscans kind of setting the stage, this new power starts to rise, absorbing and eventually surpassing them. Let's trace Rome's improbable climb from just a small crossroads town to the heart of an empire. Around 1000 BC, these Villanovan migrants cross the Tiber, settle in Latium. Early Roman government starts with elders, the senators, and the king is mainly the chief priest, wielding religious power more than absolute political control.
And what really shaped Rome's character, according to tradition anyway, were these early figures. You have Numa Pompilius, a Sabine king, who supposedly instilled fear of the gods through nightly chats with a nymph, Egeria. By making worship uniform, Numa strengthened state unity, gave Rome 40 years of peace. Quite a feat. But then his successor, Tullus Hostilius, he apparently restored Rome's normal life by actively looking for a reason for war. He attacked and completely wiped out Alba Longa, who even had the Alban king torn apart for breaking an alliance. Brutal. And Ancus Marcius, who followed Tullus, agreed with this martial philosophy. He understood that peace isn't just avoiding conflict, it requires military readiness. Otherwise, wanting quiet just makes you vulnerable.
You can definitely see that warrior spirit taking root early on. By 295 BC, Rome crushes the Samnites and Umbrians at Sentinum, adding Campania and Umbria. Then they drive the Gauls back beyond the Po River, subject to Etruria again, really consolidating their grip on central Italy.
Of course, this rapid expansion brought big challenges. When the Greek city of Tarentum called for help against Rome, Pyrrhus of Epirus, fevered with memories of Achilles and Alexander, as Durant puts it, he crosses the Adriatic. He beats the Romans at Heraclea in 280 BC, but at such a cost. That's where we get the term Pyrrhic victory, right? A win that cost too much. And interestingly, old blind Appius Claudius, long retired, famously demands Rome never make peace with a foreign army on Italian soil. He pushes them to send back prisoners, resume the war. Pyrrhus eventually leaves Italy, supposedly saying, "What a prize I leave to be fought for by Carthage and Rome." Prophetic words.
And what a prize it turned out to be. Durant called the Roman Republic one of the ablest and most successful governments ever. The Senate, mostly seasoned statesmen, triumphant generals, controlled the money, the courts. They were the real driving force.
So how did that government actually work while expanding so fast? Well, the constant warfare kind of doomed democracy in a way. Discipline, quick decisions became more important than popular vote, and realistically, only a few thousand Italians could even get to the assemblies. Broad democracy just wasn't practical for this growing empire. It was a trade-off. Security and order, but needing more centralized power. Durant makes it clear it was successful, yes, but not really democratic as we'd think of it today.
Okay, now let's pivot across the Mediterranean to Carthage, Rome's great rival. Durant paints this picture of a really bustling city houses, 6 stories high, grand temples, this incredible threefold wall that could stable 4,000 horses, 300 elephants, 20,000 men, a serious power.
The people themselves, the Carthaginians, were Semites, similar in background to ancient Jews. Bearded men, veiled women who could reach high positions in the priesthoods. Now, Greek and Roman writers were definitely biased, you have to remember that, but they often describe Carthaginians as heavy eaters, drinkers, maybe loose in sexual morals, and notoriously corrupt politically. The Romans even coined the phrase feeds punica Carthaginian faith as basically a synonym for treachery.
Ouch. Expert, digging into their beliefs, what's a detail about Carthaginian religion that still gives you pause today? Something maybe not widely known or just a really stark contrast to Roman values?
Well, absolutely. One of the most striking and frankly horrifying aspects Durant highlights is their religion, particularly worshiping Baal-Haman and Tanith. It involved human sacrifice. In major crises, apparently up to 300 children could be sacrificed in a single day. Their cries were drowned out by trumpets and cymbals. And the mothers were actually required to show no emotion, otherwise they'd be seen as impious. During one siege by Agathocles of Syracuse, the upper classes supposedly sacrificed 200 of their own aristocratic infants, maybe a grim form of population control. It's chilling and a stark reminder of how different cultures can be.
That is truly sobering. And the tragedy, of course, is that when Rome finally destroyed Carthage utterly, they gave the libraries they found to African allies, but almost nothing survived. So much of what we think we know comes through the lens of their enemies, the Romans.
Exactly. We're seeing them largely through Roman eyes, which adds this unavoidable layer of bias. It's a powerful insight into how history often gets written by the victors, isn't it?
And so it was. Cato the Elder's relentless cry, Carthago delinda est, Carthage must be destroyed, it eventually led to the Third Punic War, and that ended with the complete annihilation of the city in 146 BC. It solidified Rome's dominance, sure, but it also kind of foreshadowed future conflicts within their own growing empire. Okay, let's shift gears and unpack daily life in Rome, especially during what Durant calls the Epicurean era, say 30 BC to 96 AD. You have to imagine the forum just buzzing with business, passionate speeches, surrounded by temples, shops, those increasingly fancy homes.
What's really remarkable here is how much Roman society transformed. By Nero's time, Rome had become, in Durant's words, the New York of antiquity, half native and half everything, just massive immigration, absorption of conquered peoples. And this led to a pretty significant decay, you could say, of traditional Roman values. Celibacy, childlessness, abortion became common, especially among the wealthy. Marriage often shifted from love matches to deals based on property, political alliances. Extramarital affairs were common, though male infidelity was generally more tolerated than female. Prostitution was legal, widespread. But interestingly, despite this perceived decadence, women held considerable influence in families, socially, politically. A growing number pursued culture, even got into business, medicine, or law. Daily life revolved around formal greetings, business deals, and crucially the public baths. They weren't just for washing, they were major social hubs. Leisure meant lavish banquets, festivals, the games, of course, and performances like mimes and pantomimes became hugely popular.
You know, early Roman religion was quite a mix. Thousands of divinities, these spirits called noumena, abstract concepts like health, fortune, water gods, woodland sprites. And then there was Priapus, a Greek fertility god who found a home in Rome. Apparently, maidens and matrons would sit on his statue hoping to ensure pregnancy. Well, that's certainly a hands-on approach to fertility rituals, isn't it? It just shows how intertwined daily life, even very personal things, were with these complex religious beliefs.
And that's a perfect lead-in to the deeper insight here. Religion was crucial in forging Rome's famous iron character. It strengthened the law, gave it divine backing. It boosted soldier morale. They believed gods fought with them. It fused state and God so tightly that piety and patriotism became almost the same thing. Love of country became this incredibly powerful passion. However, by the imperial era, adherence to the old Roman gods noticeably declined. People started gravitating towards Eastern religions offering spiritual renewal, personal salvation. It reflects a sort of changing spiritual hunger in a more complex world.
So we've seen this eclectic mix of early Roman religion, but as Rome expanded, it didn't just conquer lands, it absorbed cultures. And this leads to one of Durant's really intriguing points. He argues the Greek conquest of Rome actually happened in reverse. It was through the subtle, pervasive influence of Greek religion, comedy, philosophy, art that gradually sapped the Roman character, a kind of long game of revenge, as he puts it, for Greece being conquered by Rome.
This philosophical journey is quite revealing. Greek philosophy deeply influenced Roman education, elite thinking. Figures like Carneades, Diogenes brought in skeptical ideas. Stoicism offered purpose in a changing world. The Scipionic Circle fostered a distinctly Latin literature, moving beyond just copying Greek models. Poets like Ennius, playwrights like Plautus and Terence brought real complexity, social commentary to Roman theater. Then, in the Silver Age, 14 to 96 AD, even as the empire matured, literary advances continued. Think of writers like Petronius, with his raw, sometimes vulgar satyricon. They weren't just telling stories, they were really holding a mirror up to the era's changing morals, shifting society. These works aren't just literature, they're direct insights into the Roman psyche of the time. Seneca, the famous Stoic, really embodied the era's contradictions. A profound writer, a politician who faced death with dignity, yet openly admitted his own flaws. On the flip side, you had Cato the Elder railing against corruption and luxury, trying desperately to preserve traditional Roman values against these Hellenistic influences. A real tension there.
Roman science often got overshadowed by superstition, it seems, but figures like Pliny the Elder did produce these massive encyclopedic works, even if they sometimes reflected the, well, ignorance of the time, too.
Roman medicine, though, really benefited hugely from Greek knowledge. It led to formal structures, public hospitals, specialized doctors. Asclepiades of Prusa, a friend of Caesar's, advocated hydrotherapy, massage, diet. Remarkably, he treated the mentally ill humanely. And the Roman aristocrat Celsus, though not a doctor himself, wrote De Medicina around 30 AD, a monumental work covering surgery, things like ligature. So highly regarded, he was called Cicero Medicorum, the Cicero of doctors. It highlights real medical advancement.
The literary scene in that Silver Age had this obsession with rhetoric, didn't it? Everyone seemed to be writing poetry, historians, philosophers, and reading it aloud everywhere, even in the baths. Martial complained about the noise. Durant called it a pleasant aspect of amateur authorship to an age and city darkened with sexual license and periodic terror. An interesting escape, maybe.
It's a striking contrast. And Martial himself, penning those sharp satirical epigrams about gritty Roman life, he was widely read across the empire. Yet he struggled financially, always needing patrons for dinner or small gifts, while his publishers apparently got rich selling his books. Paints a vivid picture of the literary market back then, doesn't it?
Now let's turn to Rome and Judea. A relationship certainly fraught with tension, a real collision of cultures.
Geopolitically, you have to understand Armenia was pivotal, fertile valleys, strategic location. And across the way, Parthia emerges as a major rival power. They established a feudal society, but interestingly, showed tolerance for religious diversity. This whole setup created complex dynamics between these powers in Rome.
In Judea itself, Simon Maccabee won independence from the Seleucids in 143 BC, establishing the Hasmonean dynasty. This dynasty combined both religious and political authority, but their efforts towards Hellenization, adopting Greek culture, eventually weakened religious fervor and led to pretty serious conflict with the Pharisees, who were more traditionalist.
Then comes Herod the Great, a truly complex, almost larger-than-life figure. He ruled Judea with ruthless efficiency, balancing immense power with these lavish building projects, including that huge expansion of the temple in Jerusalem alongside cultural Hellenization. But despite efforts like forgiving taxes in bad years, he was widely hated by his own people for his tyranny, his non-Jewish ancestry. His reign was tragically marked by constant, brutal family conflicts and executions. It's a testament to the harsh realities of power then.
And amidst all this Roman oppression, Jewish society was just deeply marked by this fervent expectation of a coming Messiah, wasn't it? Heavily influenced by apocalyptic writings, anticipating divine intervention, and prophetic texts describing this ideal future of peace and righteousness for Israel. A powerful hope.
A powerful hope, yes, but one that ultimately met a tragic end. After Herod's death, Judean nationalists revolted. This led to brutal Roman suppression and the devastating destruction of the temple in 70 AD. That event largely catalyzed the Jewish diaspora, scattering communities across the Mediterranean and fundamentally changed Judaism into a religion centered on law and community without a central temple. Then later, Hadrian's provocative decision to build a shrine to Jupiter right on the temple site and banning circumcision. That sparked another huge rebellion in 132 AD under Simeon Bar Kokhba. The Roman response was utterly devastating. They laid waste to almost all of Judea, a truly pivotal and tragic chapter.
Okay, let's dive into the really fascinating story of Christianity's rise. In the pre-Christian Roman Empire, there was generally, relative religious tolerance as long as groups acknowledged the imperial cult paid lip service to the emperor. Christians initially benefited from this, but that situation shifted dramatically.
Yeah, the hostility really ramped up under Nero. That marked a pivotal shift from tolerance to outright conflict. Christians' refusal to participate in Roman rituals, especially emperor worship, led to accusations of subversion, of being antisocial, even atheists because they rejected the Roman gods. Roman law eventually made Christianity a capital offense. Enforcement varied, sometimes intense, sometimes lax, until you get severe edicts under Emperor Decius, and then the harshest persecution under Diocletian in 303 AD. He really aimed to wipe Christianity out entirely. This long period of persecution deeply shapes the early church.
And amidst all that chaos, a new figure emerges. Constantine. His victory over Maxentius at the Milvian Bridge was absolutely pivotal. He then issues the Edict of Milan, which didn't just legalize Christianity, it restored its confiscated properties. This fundamentally changed everything from persecuted sect to a state-sanctioned, even favored religion.
Constantine's conversion itself Well, it's still debated. Was it genuine belief or smart political strategy? Maybe both. Regardless, his actions undeniably favored Christianity. It suggests he saw its potential to unify the fracturing empire. As the first Christian emperor, he actively supported church growth, pushed for doctrinal unity against heresies like Arianism, and famously convened the Council of Nicaea to solidify Christian doctrine. And establishing Constantinople as the new capital also symbolized this profound shift away from pagan Rome, moving the empire's heart towards a Christian identity.
What's truly profound, though, is Paul's impact. He was just absolutely key in transforming Christianity from what was initially a Jewish eschatological dream, largely bound by Judaic law, into a faith that could genuinely move the world. He skillfully wove together Jewish ethics with Greek metaphysics, essentially transforming, as Durant puts it, the Jesus of the Gospels into the Christ of theology. A huge shift.
And the early Christian community itself was quite inclusive. They welcomed slaves, initially focused heavily on the proletariat, the common people. Women were admitted to congregations too, although they were expected to maintain modest submission, avoid cosmetics or elaborate hairstyles in worship, reflecting perhaps more of a Judaic and Greek view of women than a typical Roman one at the time. This inclusivity, combined with a clear moral code and the promise of salvation, made it deeply appealing to many who felt left out by traditional Roman society.
Ultimately, Christianity's appeal was just enormous. It offered itself without restriction to all individuals, all classes, all nations. It announced the basic equality of men, which was radical then. To the miserable, the disheartened, the humiliated, it brought compassion, dignity, this powerful hope of a coming kingdom. It offered forgiveness even to terrible sinners and a kind of mental rest for people troubled by life's big questions. It really brought, as Durant beautifully says, the poetry of the sacraments and the Mass into the often harsh prose of poverty, the grinding reality of life for so many. Okay, now for the profound question that still echoes today. Why did Rome fall? The greatest empire in history. Durant believed it wasn't one single event, but this complex process over 300 years. He even noted some nations haven't lasted as long as Rome took just to decline.
What's fascinating is Durant's multifaceted analysis. He always reminds us, a great civilization is not conquered from without until it has destroyed itself within. He pointed to essential causes inside Rome: its people, its morals, the class struggles, failing trade, bureaucratic overreach, stifling taxes, those endless consuming wars. Even Christian writers at the time, like Tertullian and Cyprian, saw this decay. Cyprian actually attributed it partly to natural causes, the world getting old, less rainfall, metals running out. Durant also flags environmental factors like deforestation, erosion contributing to Italy's decline. Then there's the really serious population decline, especially in the West after Hadrian. A penuria hominum, a shortage of people. This forced the mass importation of barbarians just to fill the ranks, even the army. Emperors had to enroll slaves, gladiators, criminals. What caused this depopulation? Well, family limitation, practiced by all classes, even the proletariat, ironically named for their fertility. Infanticide was rampant. Sexual excesses, avoiding marriage, making eunuchs, it all contributed. Add to that major epidemics, like the plague around 260 AD, 5,000 deaths a day in Rome for weeks. Devastating. War, plus contraception and abortion, had what Durant called a dysgenic effect, basically. The most capable people were breeding the least. Moral decay played a big part too, that virile character forged by hardship and faith. It relaxed with wealth and unbelief. Loyalty to family, state, gods weakened. And this is where Durant offers a particularly provocative thought. He concludes Rome was conquered not by barbarian invasion from without, but by barbarian multiplication within, quote unquote. Meaning rapidly breeding Germans and others who often didn't adopt Roman culture or even sought to destroy it, mingled with a native Roman stock that has sacrificed its vitality for, as he put it, the comforts of sterility. A stark conclusion.
And this decline wasn't just in the city of Rome itself. While some provinces, like Carthage and North Africa, initially flourished under Roman rule, most eventually experienced decline too. There was this significant ruralization, a move back to the countryside, and what Durant called barbarism cities, losing those grand, straight Roman streets for more defensible, irregular alleys. A visual sign of society changing, becoming more inward-looking, maybe fearful. So what does this all mean for us? You might be asking that. Durant's Caesar and Christ gives us this sweeping, detailed, really personal look at how civilizations rise, transform, and ultimately how they can fall. It's a powerful story that, even though written decades ago, feels incredibly relevant today, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. It's such a powerful reminder that the challenges societies face, economic shifts, moral changes, population dynamics, political struggles, even environmental pressures. These are not new problems, they're deeply human problems. Durant's synthetic history, that weaving together of everything, helps us see the complex interplay of all these forces across 1,000 years. It offers a unique lens to view not just the past, but our own present, too.
So here's a final thought for you to maybe mull over. If Rome's fate was ultimately shaped by the choices it made about its people, its morals, how it engaged with external influences, what choices is our civilization making today that might be writing the chapters of our future story?
We really hope this deep dive into Will Durant, Caesar, and Christ has given you some surprising facts, maybe some fresh perspectives, and definitely a lot to think about. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep making those connections.